tests are one of the easiest, quickest, and most efficient ways to literally 10x your Shopify revenue. Hey everybody, Dominic here, back with another banger video talking about how to run split tests that can quite literally 10x your Shopify revenue extremely quickly. In this video, we're going to talk about how to leverage customer analytics and pinpoints to actually run split tests that optimize conversion rate, that optimize AOV, and at the end of the day, allow you to scale your brand super quick, super efficiently, and most importantly, super profitably. So if you've never heard of me before, my name is Dominic Mayu. I run a company called DM Corporations where we help Shopify-based e-commerce brands scale to millions of dollars of extremely profitable revenue through something that we call revenue optimization. And to be totally frank, split testing is one of the key pieces of what we do. So without further ado, let's get right into this process and explain how I run split tests for all of my partner accounts. First things first is understanding what a split test is. So split testing, also known as A/B testing, is a powerful technique for Shopify and really any e-commerce store owners to identify winning strategies for improving conversion rates, AOVs, LTVs, and really any of those core metrics. So by creating two or more variations of a specific web page or marketing element, and then comparing their performance, store owners can make data-driven decisions to optimize their business. So basically picture this. You have variation A, it's your original product page, okay? And then you want to test adding, for example, a video on your product page. Maybe it's a long 20-minute long video, about the brand, about the product, and you want to see, does adding this video on the product page actually increase sales or does it potentially hurt sales? So what split testing allows you to do is send half of your traffic to this original variation with no video, send the other half of the traffic to this variation with the video, and then track those metrics, track that conversion rate, track that AOV, track that revenue per user to really figure out, hey, maybe this video is adding 15% more revenue by getting it on the product page. What else can we do to add more revenue, right? So that's what a split test is. That's what a basic split test is. We'll walk through all of this. We're going to walk through how I run split tests, how I create my hypothesis for every split test, how I measure all of that, some examples of some winning split tests, and really just the whole shebang. So let's get into the next slide here. So here's a few statistics on Shopify split testing. So on average, A/B tests on Shopify stores see about a 12 to 23% increase in conversion rate for the winning variation. Now that is per test, okay? So you can picture this can lead to a significant uptick in revenue. And then talking about that, the revenue increase, some e-commerce companies that implement A/B testing on a regular basis have reported up to a $300,000 increase in revenue from a few simple changes to their site wording. This study is actually ran through headline split tests. So by simply testing headlines, they've been able to add over $300,000 of revenue to their bottom line. So most A/B tests reach statistical significance within 2 to 4 weeks, depending on your store's traffic levels, which means you can get a ton of massive wins per year. We're going to walk through all of this, how to actually analyze your test, when to know when to stop it, and how to determine those winners. And then companies that use A/B testing can see an average improvement in conversion rates of up to 50% or 49% before it slowly tapers off. So they're very powerful. Now, I want to walk through another super quick example of the power that split testing provides for optimizing for conversion rate. So this is just an example store. This was actually very similar numbers to a recent partner of mine, but let's just say these guys sell shoes. This is an example I use in pretty much all my videos. If you've seen any in the past, this is Shoes Galore. Okay, it's basically a made up store, so I can show you the example and the power that this has. So let's get into this. So Shoes Galore is currently converting at the industry average about 1.5%. So that's what the average Shopify store converts at, is about 1.5%. Okay, so they're sending 1,000 visitors to their website every day. At 1.5%, that's 15 conversions per day, right? Now, let's say these shoes cost $80. Okay, so he's selling these shoes for $80. So at 15 conversions per day, at $80, that's $1,200 of total revenue. But that doesn't mean $1,200 of profit. That means $1,200 of revenue. So let's say the COGS are $20, right? Which means if he sells 15, that's $300. And then $600 of ad spend to send these 1,000 visitors. So he's spending $600 on ad spend. He's spending $300 for cost of goods. He's making a total of $1,200. So that leaves him $300 a day. Okay. Now let's look at the power of split testing for conversion rate. Let's say he runs a few split tests on his product page that double his conversion rate. Now, I know double sounds like a big number, but to be totally honest, that is more than possible. We have 4 and 5 and 6x conversion rates on some of our partner accounts. So doubling is not that hard. Now, if you're already converting at 5% or something, doubling up to 10 might be pretty difficult. But if you're in this average kind of range of 1 to 2 to maybe 3%, getting that up to 3, 4, 5, or 6 is more than possible. Okay, it's more than possible. So now let's say he's ran a few split tests for conversion rate on his product page. He's converting at 3%. So he's still sending 1,000 visitors to his website every day. But because he's at 3%, he's getting 30 sales a day instead of 15, okay? Which means he has $2,400 a day in revenue. Now, here's where this gets really, really cool. The ad spend remained the exact same, right? He's still sending 1,000 visitors every day to his website, which is costing him $600. The COGS also remain the exact same, but they obviously doubled to $600 instead of $300 because he's selling twice as many. So that's a total of $1,200. But his profit is now $1,200 because he's bringing in $2,400 a day. So by simply bringing his conversion rate or her conversion rate from 1.5% to 3%, they've now 4x'd their profit. Putting $1,200 a day in your pocket sounds a whole lot better than $300 a day. I don't know about you, but it does to me. So that's the power of split testing for conversion rate, which typically is going to be the main metric that people are split testing for. So let's keep moving forward here. Now, how do you come up with split tests that win, right? How do you kind of develop the idea on what to split test? How do you implement that split test? And then how do you measure and analyze that split test? So let's start with coming up with the idea for the split test, because that's the most important element of this entire piece. If you have a poor idea or a poor hypothesis on the original split tests, it's going to lose. You're going to waste, 2 to 4 weeks of time. You're going to waste money on code, and it just isn't going to be as fun. So I will say, even at my skill level, I still lose about 20% of the time. So I get about an 80% win rate, which means about 4 out of every 5 tests I run will end up winning. So that's awesome. Now, I'd say the average person, if you spend time and really hone this in, can still probably get to a 50 or 60% win rate, which is huge. It's just, that's incredible. But you want to make sure you spend the most time on this piece. Okay. So when you're coming up with a split test, you want to ask yourself, I know it's the 5 W's that we learn in elementary school, but for split testing, it's the 3 W's. So it's what, where, and why. What am I split testing? Where am I split testing it? And then why am I split testing this? Okay, so let's start with what. So what is the element that you're going to split test? That comes to the original video of, okay, I want to add a video to the product page. That's the what. Now, where am I split testing this? On the product page, under the fold. Okay, now why am I split testing this? And this is really where the hypothesis comes in. Okay, so if I add this video and people watch it, the conversion, or they'll learn more about our brand, they'll trust our brand, so they'll convert higher. Okay, you want a what, where, and why for every single test you run. Now, I recommend to always develop a hypothesis based on some sort of data. Now, whether that's customer feedback, if you have a survey, a poll, any reviews, any sort of customer feedback is going to be your best bet to developing a powerful hypothesis. Recordings and heat maps can be huge. Back-end data can be huge. So, if you have a really low add to cart rate, that back-end data can show you, hey, I need to test my product page, right, to get that add to cart rate up. And then competitor analysis can be big too. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here. See what other people are doing, see what other really successful brands are doing, and then just iterate that to match your brand. Okay. So for every single split test, you want to develop a hypothesis. So here's one for a comparison chart. So if I add this comparison chart to the product page under the fold, then it will display the power of our product over our competitors and increase our conversion rate. So let's say, for example, we have a post-purchase survey running where we ask people, what was one thing that almost stopped you from buying today? And a big answer to that question is, I was looking at other brands, or I was split between a few brands and ended up ordering yours, or something along those lines where, maybe your competitors are taking a lot of your sales. So you come up with the hypothesis, okay, how can I display that my product is better than our competitors? A comparison chart's a really easy way to do that. So that's kind of an example of how you can pull it based on data. Now, if you're in recordings and heat maps and you notice your scroll depth is abysmal, right? Like 98% of users are not scrolling past that above the fold element, then you obviously need to test what's above the fold, because only 2% of the users are actually seeing what's below that right now. So you kind of want to use a blend of all of these different systems. Same with this backend data. That's huge for the where. Let's say, you only have a 3% add to cart rate. Now, doubling that add to cart rate will send more people through the rest of that funnel and increasing conversion rate in sales. So you want to focus on the product page. Let's say you have a really solid add to cart, a really solid proceed to checkout, but your actual conversion rate is really low. You have a huge drop off on checkout. Then you need to figure out, okay, what am I doing wrong on checkout? What's going on here? What can I test in the checkout, if you're on Plus, obviously, to increase that checkout conversion rate? So you want to be very data driven with everything you do. You don't just want to really throw things at the wall to see if they stick. Again, this is just going to increase the win to loss ratio. If you launch 10 split tests and 7 of them win, you're going to see huge results compared to if only 2 of them win over the course of a year. You're going to see smaller results. So the more time you can spend on this kind of piece, the better it's going to be. Here's a few rules of thumb. So the bigger the change, typically the bigger the result. So unless you have a ton of traffic or your site is already really dialed in, like you've been split testing every couple of weeks for a year or two, then you want to test big changes on the page. Okay, you don't want to test, for example, changing the verbiage of the add to cart button or changing the color of the add to cart button, like small changes that aren't really going to impact user behavior. You don't really want to mess with that until you're super dialed in and already where you want to be. Now, I'm not saying that those tests are pointless. I'm just saying you're going to get much bigger results by testing bigger things, like adding a giant video on the page, like redesigning that whole product page, like new UVP icons, like a new product description, rather than these really small and minute changes. That also comes with less traffic. So if you're a store that doesn't have a bunch of traffic coming to it, you're going to want to test bigger changes because you're going to have less data. All right. Now, if you're Amazon, you can test the button color and get data back really quickly. If you're an average e-commerce store, you can test the button color and get results back in 3 months. So, take that with a grain of salt there. So again, use as much data as you possibly can. And then another piece is test on high traffic impact pages, right? Most of your customers are probably going to be seeing your product pages, right? So test on your product pages. Don't test the About Us page that 17 users see every month. If your homepage is a high landing page, test your homepage. If your homepage isn't a high landing page, I have some partners where their homepage is their, 9th or 10th most viewed page. It's not really worth testing, right? You want to try to test on those top pages. And then the last rule is always be testing. Really, for all of my partners, I'd say about 80 to 90% of the time have a split test running while we're working on other things. Ideally, you only want one split test running at a time because they can impact each other unless they're two totally different ends of the funnel and they don't, impact each other at all. But even then, I'd keep it simple with one at a time. So here's a couple examples of some recent split tests that I've ran with some results. So here's the original. I know it's all blurry, but this is their product page. You can see it's, just a big jumble of text, some like infographic icons, etc. And here's a variation. So the cool piece with this, again, this is very data driven. So all 6 of these icons were actually answers to a post-purchase poll and post-purchase survey that we have going out. So we have an 8-question survey that goes out about 3 weeks after people purchase, offering them a $20 gift card back to our website if they fill it in. So the data that we get back from this is absolute gold. So all of these headlines were taken from that survey. Like one of the big questions I ask is, what do you like about this product? What made you choose this product? And then maybe what almost stopped you from purchasing this product? What do you not like about this product? And then we can answer all of that and address all of that in here. So this was super data driven, and here are the results. Obviously, this is just freaking massive. So this is revenue per user for people that land on the product page. The original was $6.34, and now the variation is almost $8, which is a massive, massive, massive change. So that's one example. Here's another one. Oops. Here's another one. Here's one on checkout, right? So for this client, we're seeing a pretty big drop off on checkout. Now, there wasn't really anything that we could do. Obviously, the shipping was pretty ridiculous, and that's just how it was for this client. So, we knew why there was a huge drop off, but we still wanted to try to decrease it as much as possible. So that's the original. Basically, what we did is just added some EVP icons, right? Like really focused on the made in USA, that kind of premium feel. Added some trust icons with family owned and fast shipping from Missouri, and then thousands of 5-star reviews. And here was our lift. We saw about a 9% lift in conversions, which is huge for checkout. Any lift on checkout's massive. For this client, just this small lift ended up leading to over 1,000 extra transactions every single month and over $86,000 every single month. And this, again, is just profit added to the original baseline. That's the power that these split tests have. All right. And then here's one more. This one's a little bit different. This one's actually AOV focused rather than conversion rate focused. So you can test for anything. I test for conversion rate probably about 7 out of 10 times, and then AOV about 3 out of 10. Just focus on what you need to focus based on the back end. So basically, we added a little checkbox for priority processing for $4.99. What this does is adds a tag to Shopify orders to actually bump it up in the fulfillment process, so they get fulfilled first. So it's $4.99. It's a cheap price point. It's obviously 100% profit for the partners. And this is the results actually. Oops. It was the top seller for a few months. Sold over 950 of these, which again, with this just being 100% pure profit, like that's pretty badass. So yeah, you can test anything. You can test anything on the homepage. You can test anything from an entirely new product page, right? Like a completely different design to just adding a video. Now, you're going to see different gurus kind of recommend different things. I say gurus, but there's pros and cons to each. So let's talk pros for a whole new product page. Pros is that's a giant change that's likely going to lead to a big change in results. So that's the huge pro there. The cons are you don't know which element is actually really increasing that conversion rate. It's kind of just overall that product page is converting better. Now, pros and cons, just testing a video, right? You may get slower results by testing one thing at a time, but you are going to confirm that each thing is actually improving conversion rates. So what I would recommend if you're just getting started is giant radical changes at first. Especially if your conversion rate isn't where you want it to be. If your conversion rate is low, test giant changes, giant, redesigns of the homepage, redesigns of the product page, the cart, etc. And then after a few of those tests and you get things dialed in a little bit, then you can start testing specific elements. Now, if you already are dialed in a little bit, you're converting pretty well, then I just go straight into the specific elements. All right. So now let's talk how, right? Now that we have it all planned, we know how to use data to actually drive these decisions. We have to talk about how to implement these. I'm not going to spend too terribly much time on this because it's pretty simple. You're going to want to leverage a tool, right? There's a ton of tools out there that do this for you, that split that traffic, that measure the results, etc. So what I use for all my clients and partners is VWO. That's what I'd recommend. There is going to be a link in the product description below for a VWO trial account. Also some really good tools, and I've used these in the past. Convert is awesome. I've never used Optimizely, but I've heard good things. Really, I use VWO for most of mine. I've used Convert a few times too, and it's pretty solid. So all of these tools do have great insight editors to allow you to create tests without the use of custom code, but they are pretty simple if you do that, right? Like it's kind of deleting certain elements or adding simple elements. If you want to do complete redesigns, you are going to need the help of a Shopify developer. if you don't have a developer already, I would just go to Upwork, find a good Shopify developer. You'll make a job post and get over 100 proposals in less than an hour. Vet a few of them, hire one, and they'll know exactly what to do. It shouldn't be too terribly difficult. Now, the last piece is, how do you analyze and optimize? Okay, so first things first, I want to talk about minimum requirements a little bit. So what you want to do is have at least 100 transactions per month before you start split testing. If you're not quite there yet, I'd work on scaling a little bit before actually split testing. Instead of testing, I would just go in and change things and see if they bump up that conversion rate or AOV. Just because, you need to get up to that point before you start. I personally think traffic is more arbitrary. I base everything off conversions. So if you get 100 transactions per month with 1,000 visitors, like, that's fine with me. Ideally, what you want is each variation to have at least 100 transactions before calling the test. That's kind of a bare minimum that I always shoot for. Which means if you want to run one test a month, you want about 200 sessions or 200 transactions a month that funnel through that page. Okay. Now, you can run tests for 2 months, 3 months. Like, if you're not quite there yet, you can run them for longer. But yeah, you want to make sure you run them for long enough to make sure that each variation has about 100 transactions at least, ideally more, to make sure they're legit and significant. So most apps also have some sort of calculator where they'll kind of calculate, all of these metrics for you, give you recommended timeframes and things like that. You don't have to follow those to a T, but it is worth looking at and kind of making sure you're in that ballpark range. And then if you are a store that has a ton of traffic and a ton of transactions, you're doing, 7 figures a month. What I do is, even on those clients, I always run a test for a minimum of 7 days just to get every day of the week through, because that can change those results. So even if I'm on, Amazon, I'm running a test for 7 days. But typically, most of my partner accounts have tests running for about 14 to 30 days. Now, as far as measuring, what metrics should you measure? I say at the end of the day, revenue per user is going to be your most powerful metric, because that is kind of a blend of conversion rate and AOV. But there are other things. I would track AOV separately. I would track conversion rate separately. But at the end of the day, I would base my decision off that revenue per user. Another important metric that I always track is micro goals. Basically, you want to ask yourself, what's the main goal of this page, right? For example, on the product page, the main goal of the product page is to get them to click the add to cart button. So if you're testing the product page, test the add to cart button clicks. Now, I know VWO and Convert both have built-in tools where you can use Google Tag Manager to actually tag certain buttons that you want to track for each variation. So it makes it pretty easy. Again, for the homepage, what's the goal of the homepage? You want them to actually view your products, right? So you can look at click-through rate on homepage, track banner clicks, things like that. Now, I do want to quickly cover this. I don't like to promote much in these videos. I try to make these as value-based as possible, but I am creating a performance-based only split testing package. So basically what this includes is I will run tests for you every single month, and you will only pay for them if they win. So I think this is a pretty badass package. I will do that entire process, from the data analysis and customer research analysis to actually come up with the hypothesis for these tests. And then I will have my team of developers install VWO on your store. They will code that test. We will track that test. And if it wins, we will implement that test. And if that test loses, you pay nothing. Okay, so this also includes monthly strategy sessions. This also includes that VWO software. This also, as a bonus for a limited time, is including 4 hours of free development hours. So basically what that means is, if you need a sale timer coded, or if you need a new banner, or if you need some stuff coded, I will give you 4 hours of my development team for absolutely free. And then you'll also have lifetime community access to my Facebook group. So there are a couple requirements to make sure that there's an ROI in there for everybody. And those requirements are at least $15,000 a month in revenue, and then less than 25K sessions a month. If you do have more than 25K sessions a month, there will be an additional charge, just because of that VWO platform getting super expensive with a ton of sessions. So I did want to throw that out there. If you don't want to actually take the time to plan, code, and iterate all of these tests, you can bring my team on to do it for you. And it is performance-based only. So if you're interested, schedule a call with me below. We can walk through all the pricing and packages for that and how that'll look. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. And that really is the end of this video. If you guys have any questions at all on my split testing kind of system, let me know. I'll probably make more videos on this in the future. I know I kind of rambled a few times through this video. I tend to do that. So I'll try to, make the next ones a little bit more concise, a little more simple, a little more straightforward. I know this was a kind of overview, but really, if you got anything from this video, it's spend the most time on that hypothesis stage. Make sure you can answer all the W questions. Make sure you use customer data. You're not just throwing things out there because your competitors are doing them, or, just willy-nilly, right? You want to kind of base it off some sort of data, and make sure you run the test long enough. Make sure you have at least 100 transactions per variation. If you're not quite there yet, that's totally fine. What I would recommend is just going in and changing things without split testing them, right? If you're converting low, go and create a new product page and just implement it and see if that conversion rate rises at all. And then work your way up to where you can actually start split testing. Yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for getting through this video for anybody who's still here. And yeah, let me know if you want me to run your split test for you. Have a great day.